My name is Emily Walker, and if you had told me a year ago that 4 strangers, 4 grown men, would ever become an important part of my life, I would have laughed. I would have shaken my head, poured you another cup of coffee, and told you I barely had the energy to manage my job, my home, and my marriage to Daniel. Life was predictable, quiet, carefully controlled, but sometimes life doesn't ask for permission before changing. Sometimes it places people at your doorstep with only one choice in front of you: ignore the knock, or open the door. Our story began on a rainy Thursday morning in February. I woke earlier than usual, the sky still dark outside our bedroom window. Daniel lay beside me, breathing steadily, his hand resting near mine but not touching. We had grown distant, not in a dramatic, stormy way, but in that quiet drift that happens when people get too used to each other. Marriage becomes routine, words shrink, smiles get tired. I slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen, thinking only of coffee and silence. But as I passed our front door, I noticed something unusual: a thick stack of letters, dropped off sometime overnight. The envelopes were damp from the rain. Some were official looking, others handwritten. I brought them inside, set the pile on our dining table, and began sorting. I assumed they were the typical mix of bills and community newsletters. But then I noticed something strange: 4 envelopes addressed not to me or Daniel, but to a name I had never heard before: Caleb Turner. I frowned. Maybe the previous homeowner, but we'd lived here for 7 years. I opened one of the letters, not out of nosiness, but because the envelope had already been partially torn by the rain. Inside was a simple message: "Thank you for your guidance. I owe you more than you know. If you ever need support, I'm here." It wasn't romantic. It wasn't threatening. It was respectful, grateful, and oddly emotional. I opened the second letter. Then the third. Then the fourth. Each came from a different sender. Each expressed gratitude toward this Caleb, someone who had apparently helped them in difficult times. Someone who meant something to them. Someone who lived at my address, or maybe used to. I was halfway through the pile when Daniel entered the kitchen, yawning, his hair sticking up in the back. "You're up early," he said, rubbing his eyes. I pushed the letters toward him. "Have you ever heard of a Caleb Turner?" He blinked. "No. Who's that?" "I was hoping you'd know." He skimmed through a few envelopes. "Weird. Maybe he was the original builder. A volunteer counselor. Something like that." "I have no idea," I said. "But people keep writing to him." Daniel poured coffee into his favorite mug, the one I bought him on our last anniversary, and handed me a cup. "Well," he said with a tired smile, "looks like you've got a mystery." I didn't know why, but the letters bothered me. They tugged at a part of me that had been asleep for a long time, the part that cared too deeply, too openly. So instead of tossing them aside, I placed them neatly on the counter and made a decision that would change everything. "I'm going to find out who he is," I told Daniel. He shrugged. "If it makes you happy." He didn't know then how important those words would become. That afternoon, I visited the community center to inquire about the name. The receptionist, a cheerful woman named Mel, tapped her finger against her chin. "Caleb Turner," she said. "Yes, I remember him. He volunteered here years ago. Left town suddenly. No idea why." "Were these letters for him?" I asked, showing her a few. Her eyes softened. "People adored him. He helped folks dealing with grief, unemployment, even addiction. He wasn't a therapist, just present, kind." Her expression changed then, gentle, but heavy with something unspoken. "If people are writing to him again," Mel said quietly, "it might mean whatever he helped them through is resurfacing. They might need support again." I went home with more weight in my chest than when I left. Daniel listened carefully as I explained everything. "So, what are you thinking?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "But it feels wrong to ignore this." He nodded, but I could see him wondering why I cared so much. Why something that had nothing to do with us suddenly mattered so deeply to me. A week passed. Then 2. And the letters kept coming. Different names. Different handwriting. All addressed to a man who no longer lived here. Until one day, a letter came with not words inside, but a phone number. A note was scribbled on the back. "If Caleb isn't there anymore, please call me. He changed my life once, and I fear things may fall apart without him." I held the paper in my hand a long time, unsure of what to do. When Daniel came home from work, I told him about it. He sat beside me on the couch. "Do you want to call?" "Yes," I whispered, "but I want you with me." He nodded, and for the first time in months, we felt like partners again. I dialed the number. A man answered. His voice was deep, steady, and tired. "This is Marcus," he said. I introduced myself and explained everything. Silence followed. Then he asked, "Is this his address?" "Yes," I said softly. Another long pause. "You should know," he said finally, "Caleb saved my life. And the lives of 3 others. If he's not there, we need somewhere to go. Somewhere safe. Somewhere we aren't alone." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering directly, he said something I will never forget. "Ma'am, there are 4 of us. And we're lost without him." When I hung up, Daniel stared at me. "Are you thinking what I think you are?" I whispered, "they need help." "Emily," he said gently, "we don't know these people." "I know," I said. "But someone once helped them. Someone living in this house made a difference. Maybe we can. Just a little." Daniel exhaled. He wasn't angry. He wasn't opposed. He was concerned for me. And for us. But after a long minute, he nodded. "If we're doing this, we're doing it together." That night, I called Marcus back and told him they could come, not to live with us, but to meet us. To talk. To see if we could help them find stability. He agreed. And 3 days later, 4 men stood at our doorstep. All different ages. All carrying backpacks. All with eyes that told stories of surviving things I could only imagine. Marcus was the oldest, maybe mid-40s, tall, calm, with a quiet strength about him. Then there was Jonah, younger and withdrawn. Lucas, who had the brightest eyes but carried the deepest sorrow. And Peter, gentle and polite, who thanked me 3 times before he even stepped inside. Daniel stayed close beside me, protective but open. "I'm Emily," I told them. "This is my husband, Daniel. We don't know Caleb, but we want to understand." The 4 men exchanged glances. Marcus spoke first. "Caleb took us in when we had nowhere else to go. He helped us rebuild our lives. And when he left town, he told us this address was always a place of hope. A place to start over if things fell apart again." I felt a lump in my throat. "But why now?" Daniel asked gently. Marcus sighed. "Life happens. Jobs get lost. Past demons return. And when one of us slipped, we all felt the foundation crack. We promised each other we'd stay together." "So you came here," I whispered. "Because this address meant safety." "Yes," Marcus said, "because Caleb believed in us. And we need someone to help us believe again." What happened next was not an act of charity. Not pity. Not obligation. It was simply humanity. We invited them inside. And that single choice became the beginning of a journey none of us expected, especially my husband, who stood beside me every step of the way as we let 4 men into our lives. Not into our marriage. Not into anything inappropriate. But into the parts of ourselves that had forgotten how to care, how to heal, how to reconnect. Helping them helped us. In ways we would only come to understand months later.